G'day fellas, welcome commanders. In this video, we take a look at 8 simple tips to help you get good. There's a lot of mistakes I see players making even at high levels, and I wanted to address some of these things that frequently crop up. So let's get into it, starting off with our first tip, and that is watch out for chain reactions. You would not be surprised the amount of times I have seen this type of layout whenever you're playing as air. Now, keep in mind this goes for every single map, and it goes for any level of player, but this right here is dangerous, and the reason why is because of its ability to chain. If we take a look at what happens when just a few units get some damage over on here, you'll see that these wind turbines chain react onto their nearby friends, and it means that the first one might die, and not a lot of damage is done. When the second one dies, a little bit of damage gets done, and then the trouble happens when the third and the fourth one start dying, because now all of a sudden, as you can see, I'm trying to fix that one up there. There we go. We're trying to start a chain reaction. Basically, what's happening here is all of the winds then go on to chain with each other. And this is incredibly dangerous. Now, winds aren't the only things that can chain. There are other buildings that can do it, but this is the most obvious example I see of a chain reaction. So this is probably what you do if you're a lower level player. If you want to get better though, I'm going to change my color over to blue because this is what you should be doing at a higher level, or at least after you've learned about this, you should be splitting your winds up. Now, there's a couple of different ways that you can do that. The easiest one is to go for something like this, which is where you've got a nice little blend, a compromise between winds that won't chain. So if we take a look here and get all of these targets or get all of these brutes down here, we'll speed it up a little bit as well. It's going to make it a little bit harder for these winds to chain. Now, they technically will still chain, but they won't chain by themselves. You'll have to chain them, or the units will have to actually chain them. So you can see here that we have got our winds that are still alive. And the reason why we do this is just simply because it's very efficient on both time and space. So the way that we do that is we just make a block of 5 winds like that, and then what we're going to do is just cancel out the middle. And then that's going to allow the builder to go up the middle, and he's going to be building all the winds, and it's very efficient. It's still good with space, and at the same time, it's immune to chaining to a certain extent. The ultimate way to do that, though, is through spacing out your winds. So normally you've got your winds that are touching. The best way to do it is to space them out, so give them 2. So by pressing Shift, Alt, and then Z on your keyboard will allow you to choose or cycle between the spaces that you want. Do you want lots of space, a little bit of space, and to go down in the space, you're going to press Shift, Alt, X. And that essentially you want 2 spaces. And what that is going to do is that's going to basically stop chaining completely. So as you can see, even if you've got a whole bunch of units that are over here and they're attacking all of your different winds, let's speed it up a little bit, it's very, very difficult to actually make them chain just simply because they're so far away from each other. So you definitely want to be looking at this as an option for your wind turbines, and you see this very often for high level players. Now, winds aren't the only things that chain react. Let me show you, like, I have seen this type of base so many times when I've been watching games, even from high-level players. It's all over the shop. You've got your build power, it's in different positions, your APHIS that are touching right next to your advanced energy converters, and this is dangerous. Now, I'll be honest with you, I've done this in the past, but let me show you why it's so dangerous. This is because buildings chain with each other, and when advanced energy converters explode, they do a huge amount of damage, and that also does damage to the APHIS that is nearby. So we're going to try something here. I don't know whether or not this is going to work, but we're going to try and chain this APHIS from a single little energy converter. So let's give it a go and take a look whether or not we're able to do it. Oh wait, we're getting healed up here, excuse me. Let's try it. Oh, we're still getting healed up, don't worry. All right, let's see. Okay, we got it. And that right there is why you have to be very careful with how you build your base, because a single energy converter can chain onto a larger one, which can chain onto a fusion, which can chain onto an APHIS and destroy everything. A much better base building would be something like this, which is where it's got clear segmentation. It also is much easier on the eyes as well. You've got your build power that is separating your advanced energy converter. So even in the event that, let's say, some brutes get through to the back line and start... sorry, just give me a sec here. We've got to make sure that we're hitting the right targets, and let's make sure that we're not repairing. Even if they get through, it's going to take out all of this side, but as you can see, only a very small amount of damage is actually done to our fusions. It keeps them alive, it keeps them here, and we've got it segmented so that our build power is on the other side. This is our first tip. You need to watch out for chain reactions. You need to be aware of them. Another thing that you could look to do is be a little bit more defensive in your positioning when you're placing buildings. So here, as an example, we've got energy converters towards the back of the base, very far away from anything. And because of that, it means that even in the event that they go boom, that it's not going to affect much. We're going to lose a construction turret. That's going to be it. So that's another way that you can definitely look to do it. Let's move on to our second tip. So that's our first tip out of the way. Watch out for chain reactions. Second tip is reclaim less efficient forms of energy. So when it comes to energy, there are lots of different ways that you can generate it. You can use wind, you can use solars, advanced solars, you can use fusions, and you can use the APHIS, the Advanced Fusion Reactor. Now, each one, as it steps up, is more efficient than the next, with the exception of wind. Wind is the only one that really changes depending on the average wind speed of your map. So as an example, on this map, wind is better than fusions, but not as good as APHIS. So just be aware of that. There's other factors involved, but that's generally it. So the main thing that I want to really harp on here is reclaiming your basic solars. You don't really have to reclaim advanced solars. You don't even really have to reclaim your fusion reactors, but at the very least, you need to be reclaiming your solars. That means that once you've got, so when you start out, it's absolutely fine for you to be putting down a number of solars. Many games I'll start off, I put down 5, 6 solars, and that will allow me, irrespective of good wind or bad wind, to have that baseline energy. However, it's not very efficient. We're paying 155 metal for only 20 energy. Compare that over to our advanced solar, where we're paying 350 metal for 80 energy. So that basically works out to be about 4.5 metal for every energy that we're getting. Whereas here, you're looking at 7.5 energy, or 7.5 metal for every energy that you're getting. By the same token, when it comes to your late game economy, you can keep your fusions around. It's not going to hurt you, but I would definitely recommend reclaiming them and looking to infuse that metal into APHIS. Because of that, so here as an example, we can put down an APHIS. Now, we've never put it down in this position, so I'm going to go ahead and reclaim it. We'll go build it over here. We'll make sure we turn our cheats off as well, so it actually builds slowly. But one of the things that you can do is, if you're stalling out on that metal, is you can reclaim like that. So you can basically be reclaiming and then at the same time infusing this metal, because this metal is less efficient than the metal that will be going into an APHIS. Normally you want to treat them as stepping stones though. So you'll start off with your solars, go into your advanced solars, then go into your fusions, and then finally go into your APHIS. And it's just important to make sure that you're looking at what you can be reclaiming and reclaiming those less efficient forms of energy. Now let's move into our third point, which is transitioning to tier 2 too quickly. Now, this is something that I quite often see on glitters, especially in lower level lobbies. At higher level lobbies, you typically see it a fair bit less. So mainly towards our lower level players here, be aware of transitioning too quickly into tier 2. When you do that, it's going to take a huge amount of metal to transition into tier 2, and it's going to mean that that metal is no longer being spent on units, because when we're playing typically a frontline role, we want to make sure that there is a decent amount of units, a decent amount of defenses, as we've got up here in this position at the moment. Let's make sure everything's firing though, and that we've got everything working up here. So we're holding up on this position, but the trouble that you've got is in the event you say, all right, we're going to go for T2 here. What's going to happen? Well, you're going to be spending all of, well, that was very quick, Cotton. Let's make sure we fix that up. You're going to be spending all of your resources, all of your income in going to tier 2, and subsequently there's nothing coming towards the front line. Now, this is something that really it takes a fair bit of experience to understand when to do it and when not to do it. But generally what's going to be happening is you're going to have a player on your team that is going to be playing the tech position. They are going to be handing you out a T2 constructor. And when that T2 constructor comes through, you're going to be able to upgrade all of your mexes with that T2 constructor. After that, your metal economy will 4x, going from whatever it is at the moment, so 17, it should go up by 4, which is a massive difference. And because of that, you've then got a much larger amount of metal, which can then allow you to transition into that second tier a lot more easily. So I'm not necessarily saying wait until you've got the T2 constructor, because it's a very game by game thing, but I would just mainly say be aware that when you do transition to T2, that you are going to be hurting your potential lane or your allies by not providing them T1 units. So many games I will be playing as tech, and I will send T2 units up to the front quite early, maybe 6 minutes, 7 minutes into the game, and I'll be wondering, where are all the units for my allies? And I'll see that there'll be a T2 lab that's going up here, a T2 lab that's coming up in the back of the base, a T2 lab on the front. Now, normally that's quite okay because they've got a lot of resources, so that's kind of fine for them to to do that, but it can be very difficult when you come up here and there's nothing to protect your T2 units. And at the end of the day, they need to work in harmony. There needs to be a synergy there between the T1 units. They need to be able to defend the T2 units, and at the same time, the T2 units need to be able to help push for those T1 units. So just be cautious about your transition over to T2 and make sure that there's an appropriate amount of units on the front to help support any of those pushes. Our next interesting our next tip that you can use is about low priority. Whenever you start a game off, your commander will start off on high priority. And what this does is it chooses where to assign resources. So basically, if you've got it on high priority, that will mean the commander always takes resources, and it means that he will take them over things like your metal extractors. So at the moment, what we will see happen is that our metal extractors will begin to stall as we run out of energy, because all of that energy is being siphoned off to the commander. So at the moment, you can see we are on that high priority. We're sitting at 9 at the moment, so it's doing a good job to hold for now, but that number should come down. Hold on, give me a second here. It's not coming down. Okay, it should be coming down. But essentially, to explain it, the way that the mechanic should work, it's been a little bit buggy lately, I'll say that, because sometimes, essentially what you want to be doing, what I'm pointing out here, turn your commander onto low priority. There's also a setting that you can go, if you go to filter and look at priority, build a priority restriction. Is that where it is? There's definitely high priority. Maybe it's in advanced. Is that it? Build a restriction priority? Okay, yeah, this is it. So sets builders on low priority mode. So you always want this turned on. And the reason why is because metal extractors should be above low priority, but below high priority. And you never want your metal extractors to stall. So to stop them from stalling, now we didn't actually see them stall right there. Maybe if we make a few more, we can get them to stall. Yeah, that was, I guess, a little bit ironic. Maybe let's try building something else. Let's try building a lab here. So you can see we're dropping down from, we're still just holding on 15. I'll be honest with you, I don't actually know why it's not stalling. These should be, because we're on low priority. Maybe that's why. let's put ourselves onto high priority. Even then, I don't know what's going on or why it's not doing this. But look, it's not working right now. It's been a couple games in a row where I've had a bit of a buggy priority. Actually, let me restart the game. Maybe that fixes it. Okay, we're here. We just spawned in again. This should stall us out right here. We should drop down from 8 metal per second. I don't know why it's not doing it. That's actually crazy. It should be stalling us anyway. It's not. I'm just going to leave it for the moment. So essentially, that's all you want to be doing. That's my tip. Just turn everything onto low priority. Then if there's something that you actually want to build. So as an example, let's say that there's a big air raid that's coming through and you need to get up anti-air ASAP. What you can then do is say, okay, I'm going to drop down. In this case, we'll do a thistle. And that thistle, what we can do is take all of the builders and then put them onto high priority. And, oh, okay, there we go. Now you can see we're actually stalling out metal. Okay, I don't know why we weren't stalling out metal before, and that's because we're on high priority. And so, of course, if we change this to low priority, then all of a sudden our metal extractors are going to turn back on. I got no idea why that wasn't working with other buildings, because normally it will stall out at the very beginning there. But yeah, for some reason it wasn't. Anyway, there we go. Now we're finally getting that stall coming through. Gosh, I tell you what, I was going a bit crazy there. I was a bit worried. I was like, am I just imagining things? But anyway, what it does is it allows you to prioritize and say, okay, I want to make sure that this comes up ASAP, because that's pretty much the only circumstance where you would say, okay, I want all of my metal extractors to turn off, would be when I want an air defense to come up, or when I need a specific defensive unit to come out. So the next thing that we're going to be talking about, so that's our 4th tip. Our 5th tip is about using the Commander D-Gun more, especially cloaked, and just about Commander usage in general, because one of the big things that I see, especially at lower levels, is that the Commander will just sit in the back of the base. So if you envision a base right here, so maybe something like this, we've got our solars up, or our advanced solars up, we've got our winds. The commander will just be sitting back here and chilling out. So the commander is the most powerful unit in the game by far. And the best thing that you can do is bring him forward. Now, you don't want to be aggressive with him. You need to be defensive with him. You need to make sure that he stays alive. But you want to bring him forward, and you want to take advantage of the D-Gun. And the D-Gun is the disintegrator gun, and it one-shots any single unit in the game. And it's so powerful because no matter whether you're early, mid, or late game, this unit allows you to have control somewhere that you shouldn't have control. And very often, I will ask players, I will ping them, and I'll say, hey, give me control of your commander, just because it's way too much to explain to somebody in the course of a game. I'm going to take your commander, I'm going to bring him front, I'm going to cloak him, he's going to be invisible from the enemy's going to bring units up, and I'm just going to hit the D-gun button, and they are all going to die. In so many games, this has happened. For example, in a recent game that I was playing, there was a whole bunch of demons from the enemy that we knew were going to start pushing Canyon any second. So I'd asked my ally a little bit earlier to provide the commander to me. The demons were moving up over the edge like this, and as a result, the commander was positioned at the back here. And naturally, I knew that this was going to be problematic. Demons are very powerful units, but fortunately, the enemy made a mistake. They kept all of their demons together. So it meant as long as we were able to track them, and our commander was able to stay invisible, what happened was the demons, as they tried to get past, the commander simply walked up to them, waited until he was at point blank range, and the moment that he was there, just hit them all with a big D-gun and killed them immediately. The threat was shut down, 24,000 resources or 24,000 metal was gone in a heartbeat, and it's because of plays like that that you have to be so careful about the commander, but at the same time, you have to make sure that you are actively searching for those opportunities to get huge value, and there's no better value than in Canyon. He's got so much protection, there's so many places that he could be, so many little positions that he could be wiggling, and you just don't know where he is, so you also want to use that threat. At the same time, you also want to be taking advantage of a jammer. So let's go ahead and put some cheats on. Let's grab ourselves a construction bot here. And what we're going to do is we're going to build a jammer, because this goes into our 6th tip. So we can use the jammer to very effectively shut down pushes. So if we take a look here at, it's not buildable from our commander, it's only buildable at the T1 level or the T2 level. For the core, it's called the Castro. For ARM, it's called the Sneaky Pete, or at least it used to be called the Sneaky Pete. I don't know if they've changed it. So basically the way that it works is it just blocks radar dots. So essentially our commander, he can be seen, even if he's cloaked, he can be seen on a radar. But the great news is that if you've got a jammer, he can stand right here on the edge and nobody can see him at all. And because of that, it allows you to take real advantage against big pushes, especially against T2 units. Let me show you an example. Okay, in this example, we're taking a look at a middle lane here, and one of the setups that we've got is a whole bunch of defenses that are here and a single Castro, and this is going to allow our commander to stay cloaked right here on the front. What's going to happen here is the Fat Boy is going to move up, and naturally you will see blips appear. You'll be able to target them down, but then they'll disappear, and you'll become aware, okay, there is a jammer somewhere in here. So let's pretend that this Fat Boy here is our opponent's Fat Boy. It's not easy for us to do this and sort of have it any other way. So I've just got to kind of show you it like this, where we're controlling the Fat Boy, we're controlling everything in here. So essentially these blips disappear, and now we're aware that there's a jammer. Now, what happens if we try and find the jammer? Well, first and foremost, our range is 700, but our line of sight is only 510. So it means that we're going to have to send units in here. And even if in the event that we actually find that jammer, we're going to need to target it down. Now we've got some AoE here, so if we take a look here, maybe if we do a shot like this, it's going to do a little bit of damage, or maybe you could even go for a shot like this towards the front. Let's see if we can actually connect it. There we go. And then, so you'll have damage that comes through, but of course this can all be repaired up by your construction turrets. So the only real way that you're going to be able to take out a Castro like this is going to be through a direct shot from a Fat Boy. So let's go and give one of those bad boys right there, and so you can see that we've still got the ability to repair through it, but we need to get close for it. And one of the things to note is that the commander is right here, and this here is his D-gun range. As you can see, he's very close to being able to D-gun that Fat Boy, and if that Fat Boy takes a couple steps up too far, it's going to mean that the commander can get an instant D-gun off. So even just this close right here, now that Fat Boy is dead. But it also means, keep in mind, the commander is significantly faster than the Fat Boy. He can chase him down. It gives him that opportunity to shut it down. So my 6th tip to you is make sure you are using the jammer actively when it comes to defending. It is incredibly powerful to have a jammer up. Make sure that you keep it alive, and if it dies, rebuild it. The jammer single-handedly can shut down so many pushes just because it's so freaking annoying, especially the way that it interacts with commands like fight. For anyone unfamiliar with the way that the fight command works, essentially the way that it works is your units will continue moving forward until they find a unit to shoot at, until and once they find that unit to shoot, then they will stand still and they will shoot at that unit. And basically what happens is if there are blips on the radar, they will fire at those units. But if there's no blips on the radar, then they will just keep moving towards that position. And basically what happens is that if you've got rocket bots in, as an example right here, they will move into the radius of the laser turrets, and then they'll start shooting them, but they're already in the radius of the laser turrets, when technically they can actually be hitting the laser turrets when they're not within the radius. So that is essentially it. Using the jammer is incredibly powerful. The next point that I'm going to make is another economic focused point, and that is this is tip number 7. Focus your resources on one specific project at a time. What do I mean by that? Beyond All Reason has a streaming economy. That means that you can be building a million things at the same time, and not all of them are being built efficiently. You don't pay the resources up front. You're streaming them in slowly. And here is our example. We're building 4 different things at the same time, and I've seen players that do this. We're building energy, we're building units, we're building defenses in the form of an anti-nuke, and we're also building a bulwark in the form of a real solid defense. So because of this, nothing is being built properly. So what's important is that we focus our resources on one thing at a time. Now that doesn't mean that you can't be building advanced or energy converters over here, and at the same time building wind turbines over here, and at the same time having units coming out. It's about making sure everything is balanced. But the main focus, especially in the late game, is looking to just keep your eyes focused on a single target, at least for the moment. So in these circumstances, what would I do? Well, I would look at which one is the most important here. Is the enemy attacking me with units right now? Do I need to get something in there immediately? Then what am I going to do? I'm going to stop everything. I'm going to tell everything to just focus. I'm going to put things on wait if they are not already, and then I'm going to make sure that those buildings that I need to be built, we can actually do that, and we can put that on wait there as well. I need those buildings to be built right now. I'm going to get that up. Maybe we've scouted on the other side that that a nuke is a nuclear missile silo is there. So instead of building up our bulwark, we could be focusing all of our attention on this anti-nuke. And maybe we haven't done that. Maybe we just need energy. Maybe we really badly need energy, and we can get our fusion up instead. Or, of course, maybe we want to push the front. Maybe the enemy is pushing towards us, but we don't need to be putting down defenses just yet, because maybe they're only at like this position. So then we can spend all of those resources on the unit instead. So essentially the idea is that we want to choose what's the most important and then just work on that one instead of working on lots of different things at the same time. The final thing that I'm going to be talking about is construction turrets, because this is something that I quite often see. When it comes to using construction turrets, the most common thing I see people doing is overbuilding construction turrets. The truth is, you just don't need this many construction turrets to build a fusion reactor. Especially, one of the things to be aware of is how many resources a construction turret is actually draining when it's building something. So one of the things that I like to do whenever I'm in a situation like this is reclaiming my own construction turrets. So in this situation, we are short on a bit of metal. So what we can do is we can reclaim these construction turrets, and that's going to give us metal into the bank right here. And we can actually see the true amount of drain that we've got on. So even here, we've got way too many construction turrets. So what we do is we try and balance how many construction turrets we've actually got with our resource expenses. So in this situation, if we take a look here, you'll see that we're spending 160 metal every second, but we've only got an income of 67. So once again, it means that we can get rid of these construction turrets because they're not really needed at this stage. Now, of course, there are circumstances where it makes sense to have more construction turrets. Perhaps you need to reclaim a T2 lab, and you're about to put a whole bunch of metal into something, and therefore you're spending it significantly faster than you're making it, and it makes sense in those circumstances to do that. But generally, once you've gotten through those hard bumps, it makes sense to actually keep a lower number of construction turrets rather than a higher number. Now, that's not to say that you don't want to go crazy with your construction turrets at some point in the game. You definitely do. But just be aware that these construction turrets do cost metal, and every construction turret you build that you don't need, you're delaying your inevitable fusion reactor by that 230 metal. If we were to have a look at what that means, we've got an income of 66, and therefore each construction turret is delaying us by 4 seconds. And if we've got 10 of them that we don't need, then we're delayed by 40 seconds. And because we've delayed by 40 seconds, that means that our fusion reactor is not going to be online for those 40 seconds. It means our converters are not going to be converting metal. So we're missing out on a whole bunch of converters, maybe 14 over 40 seconds, which can add up to a huge amount of metal. So these numbers can really compound on each other over time. So just be aware that when you're building, you don't need to have a huge amount of construction turrets, especially when you're building fusions. When you're building the APHIS, it's a little bit different because each building drains differently. differently. What do I mean by that? So let's take a look and compare these two. So here we've got the Aphis and here we've got the Fusion. If we take a look at what these construction turrets are draining when it comes to their metal, here we're draining 5.9 metal every second, whereas on the Fusion, we're draining 12 metal, more than double the metal drain right here. So what that means is we need a lot less construction turrets to actually build the fusion reactor with the metal income that we've got. But it also means that when we transition over to Aphis eventually, we're going to need to put down more construction turrets. And there's a nice little blend that you can find in here, because one of the things I love to do personally is I love to reclaim my fusions and then put all of that metal into the Aphis. And you're going to need more construction turrets to do that, to reclaim, and then at the same time to build. So we often go up to quite a high number. But just be aware of that when you're starting off on your fusions. Make sure that you're not building too many construction turrets. And by the same token, be aware that with Season 3, the lab changes mean that you have got a lab that's got a base build power of 600. So you don't need to have 4, 5, 6 construction turrets supporting that at the very beginning. You can get away with even 1 or 2 construction turrets supporting the lab. It has got a huge amount of inbuilt build power, so just be aware of that. That's the T2 lab. Obviously, the T1 labs are a little bit different, but that's essentially it. Hopefully, you've enjoyed this video. Hopefully, these 8 tips are something that you've taken away from. You've learned something. I suspect the more experienced players are probably going to be rolling their eyes and saying, come on, this is basic stuff. And I'm sure people that aren't, or that haven't played for 3,000 hours are probably going to be saying thank you. So anyway, hopefully you're saying thank you and you've enjoyed this video. Other than that, though, we'll leave it there and we'll catch you in the next one.